Yes. So today we are starting with the new topic that is compound. Now, before starting it, first of all, we need to know that what compound is. All right. So when we talk about compounds, we have done with elements. Elements is something that is made while combining two reactions together. All right. When any reactions combine and if it does not give any chemical reaction to a substance, that pure substance is said to be your element. Whereas on the other hand, there are some compounds as well. For example, the pure substance made up of two or more different elements can be separated into smaller substances by chemical means atoms from compounds to become more stable. Now, what compounds is, for example, when two elements combine together and when it gives a new substance, it is said to be compound. All right. Whenever two elements when they are combined together in a chemical reaction, and then with it when a new substance is formed, that new substance is said to be your compound. All right. Again, I'm repeating for your is whenever any two elements combine, okay, and when they produce a different kind of a substance, that substance is known as compound. All right. In our periodic table also you must have seen that there were so many elements, but apart from elements also there were few things. Those were compounds. सारी चीजें elements नहीं हो सकती, but दो elements को मिला के जो तीसरी चीज बनती है वो हमारा compound होती है. All right. So yeah, this is about compound. Now, the difference between element and compound. I know that most of the people will confuse over here that what is the basic difference between them, all right? So the difference between an element and a compound is, for example, element consists of only one kind of atom, all right? एक ही चीज होती है उसके अंदर, it is unicellular, whereas compound always have more than one kind of atoms. All right, when we talk about atoms in elements, there is only one atom, ठीक है? But in compound there is more than one. Then elements, we cannot divide elements into two or more simpler substances by physical or chemical means, as we have just learned it. बहुत अच्छे तरीके से दिमाग में बैठ चुकी है ये बात. But in compounds, we can divide compound into elements by chemical reaction. Of course, whenever you are going to put any chemical reactions on compounds, it will divide itself into elements. Why do you think it will divide itself into elements? Because two or more elements when combined are known as compound. All right. When two or more elements when combined are known as compound. So similarly, अगर किसी केमिकल रिएक्शन से आप कंपाउंड को अलग करेंगे तो क्या निकलेगा? एलिमेंट ही निकलेगा ना, बिकॉज एलिमेंट से बना हुआ है. So of course you will get an element only. Now third one, there are only 118 types of elements known to mankind. There is no upper limit on the type of compounds that can be formed. अच्छा, अब जो limitations है elements की वो तो 118 ही है. But when we talk about compounds, there is no limitation. It's infinite. Yesterday, one of you asked me that, Miss, are elements, the number of elements are higher or compounds? So the answer of it is compound. I said elements by mistake, but over here, let me correct myself as well. That number of compounds are much more than in elements. Why? Because of course compounds can be made by combining so many elements together. All right. कोई भी चीज अगर हम बनाना, for example, अगर हम seasonings की मिसालें मसालों की जिसे हम cooking करते हैं, out of 4 to 5 seasonings we can make tremendous of dishes. We can make uncountable dishes. All right. So, because why? Because when we are going to put so many seasoning into one or two dish, of course we are going to make a lot from these, but seasoning will remain only the ones that we have man-made or natural. Seasonings तो उतने ही रहेंगे, but out of seasonings we can make a lot more things. For example, if you will take the examples of pencil and your mind. Pencil आपके पास एक ही होगी, but आपके mind में जितने भी sketches होंगे, you can portray it onto the paper. So this example can be converted into elements and compounds. I hope my example was manageable for you all. Then the last one. Yes, there are some characteristics of compounds. Now, characteristic means different properties of it. ठीक है? Elements are not easily separated by physical means. When we talk about elements, it cannot be physically separated. Why? Because वो तो पहले ही एक atom से बना हुआ है, तो आप उसको physical separate कैसे करोगे? बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. But compound can be done that way. The compound has properties quite different from the elements it is formed from. ठीक है? The formula of compound summarizes the whole number atomic ratio of what it is made up to. फॉर एग्जाम्पल मिथेन CH4, ठीक है, होल नंबर से बना हुआ होता है. व्हाट आर योर होल नंबर्स? इट इज ऑलवेज मेड फ्रॉम दी होल नंबर्स, दी chemical formula of compound. Then the word formula can also apply to elements. The word formula of compounds can be applied to elements, but elements का word formula हम compound में नहीं apply कर सकते. All right. So these were few of the differences between your compound and your elements.
By now, we are aware of the difference between elements, compounds, and mixtures. Do you remember the differences? Mixtures are like food items that we consume. They contain everything in proportion that we desire. We can add or remove a substance according to our need. Compounds, on the other hand, are those which have substances in fixed proportion. So if you change the proportion of substances, it will affect the compound and render it changed. For instance, if you remove even one hydrogen from H2O, that is water, the composition changes and water as a compound does not exist. Thus, fixed proportion is a must in compounds. Lastly, we have the elements. These are the purest forms of any known substance. They are composed of only the same type of atoms. There are neither proportions nor random mixing of substances. So can we say that compounds and mixtures are made up of elements? Absolutely. So in nature, it implies that elements are the basic forms of every material that we find around. And hence, in order to study every substance around us, we need to begin with studying the various elements. So where do we begin? Maybe the reactivity or maybe the physical properties first, right? I'm asking if we can study the reactivity and physical properties of each of the elements. Is that feasible? Well, all these would have been valid only if the elements would be few in numbers. Do you know the number of elements that exist? Astonishingly, the number of elements that we find naturally occurring is 98, while the total number of elements known to mankind is 118. So how do we study each element individually for all its properties? Looking at the number of elements that exist, I don't think it would be convenient to pick every element individually and study all the properties, right? Imagine you have to organize the kitchen. You will not place any vessel or eatable randomly anywhere. You will organize the shelves and refrigerator in the most convenient way which is suitable for your needs. Similarly, for studying so many elements, we need to organize them appropriately. And organization begins with arrangement. Yes, arranging the various elements is the first step towards understanding their properties. And arrangement is possible only if we categorize them, right? This is how we organize the elements. And this process of categorization helps us study the elements with ease. In other words, we've classified the elements here. Classification of elements is categorizing the various elements into groups based on similarities and differences in their properties. The classification system helps us in grouping the various elements into categories which we refer to as the periods. Hence, the system is also referred to as the periodic classification of elements. Let's get to know how periodic classification